What makes good UX design? It might not be very easy to answer this question. Maybe because that can be a bit subjective, as there is no formal definition of what is good or bad UX design. In this lecture, we're going to discuss what UX design is. We'll look into some examples of good versus bad design, and we'll discuss the key components of the UX design process. UX stands for user experience. So that's the experience that the end user has with the product, which means how easy it is to use the product, and how the user feels about the product, but also the company in general. Think about a moment when you've been using a product where it is difficult to find the information you needed, or maybe you encountered some mistakes in the product, or you needed to do some repetition of the same activities. Once the user gains such a negative user experience with the product, she will likely get some negative emotions toward the product, and even toward the company in general. And in the contrary, a delightful product, which is pleasant to work with, will directly bring positive emotions. The user would gain trust in the company and would likely be considering buying again next time from the same company. Although UX is a very common term in the product world, there are some misunderstandings with what UX actually is. On the one side, UX is sometimes confused with usability. Usability is the degree to which a software product can be used by specific consumers to achieve certain objectives. So basically, how easy is it to operate the product? But UX design comprises of multiple components, and it's not only usability. According to Frank Gore, UX strategist and architect, there are 4 different components of UX. Usability is only one of them. That's the ease to use the product. Another one is adaptability. That describes the ease to start using the product. The value is also very important. That's the value provided to the user. And desirability. That's the level of fun and engagement the product brings to the user. On the other side, UX is sometimes confused with UI. A UX designer is not the same as a UI designer. A UX designer is a user experience designer who is covering all the different aspects mentioned above. While UI stands for user interface, that's design that is specifically focused on the visual aspect of the product, so how the user interface will look. In UI, the focus is on the colors, the typography, the layout, buttons, images. UI is also very important because the more visually appealing the product, the more it is attractive to the customer. But UI does not cover quite a few areas that are part of UX. Let's look at some examples. Say you want to do an online payment. The system asks you to input certain parameters from your credit card, one of them, for example, name, and the other one, the number of the credit card. The system doesn't provide any guidance about the format that the credit card number should be in, and it doesn't facilitate you in the process of typing the number. But once you enter the number in this format, you press enter and you get the message, "Invalid format, please try again." And even more, the system removes all the other input parameters you have entered. The name disappears suddenly, and then you need to input that once again. You probably agree that this is not a desired behavior, and this is a bad UX experience. Years ago, this was maybe a normal behavior we would expect from software systems, but not anymore. Today, we have much higher expectations from products in terms of usability and user experience. Another example is finding the product you need. So imagine you want to buy something, for example, a bottle of water, and you type water, but then you make a typo. You press search, and then you get a message, "No product found, enter the name correctly." This is to some extent an acceptable behavior, I would say, but it's still not very delightful. So I'd expect a product to do much better than this. It should directly recognize that the user has made a typo and should propose an appropriate correction. And a third example. If you're using WhatsApp, you've probably seen this. If you write a message to your friend, and then a few seconds later you decide to delete the message, you're removing the message, but then your friend gets the messages like this. So the system basically successfully deleted the message. However, it's not the behavior of the product that the user will be happy with. Making the product more user-friendly might require additional features, which means more effort required. You should not implement all these features in the first version of your MVP. Based on the value and the effort to implement something, you can decide what is relevant to be included in the first version of the MVP for the first user group, and what can remain for later.